Two. Order arms.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Willamette National Cemetery. We are here today to honor your loved one, Charles. On behalf of the cemetery staff and our director, we would like to extend our sincerest condolences. We will now proceed with the military honors portion of the service. This will include the playing of caps and the holding and presentation of our flag.
And salute. Two.
Yeah, President of the United States, comment on the Marine Corps faith and nation. Please set this flag as a symbol of love and unity and faithfulness.
Thank you, Captain Pierce.
On behalf of the 1st Marine Division Honor Guard and all the military personnel present, we want you to know not only is this a sacred duty that we hold dear, but it is an honor to be here with family and friends that we're developing through. So they put a couple of some of those individuals to look at in a later time. So this document explains the 13 folds of our nation's colors, which you now hold, as well as the ceremony attended since the end of the Civil War. Preach to the choir for just a second. This road of life that we're on, pretty chancy business. I don't imagine that your Marine expected to be in bed when he was 10 or 12 years old, but there he was, doing his job, and very well. That's what Marines do. We know you've lost a loved one. We, the Corps, have lost a brother, and our nation has lost a war. Hope you find comfort, sir. Thank you. Semper Fidelis, sir. Semper Fidelis.
In respect and honor to your loved ones, faithful service to our nation, we humbly ask you to accept this coin on behalf of the people of our lands. This coin is a symbol of our appreciation for Charles's selfless and unwavering devotion to his duty to his country. We are proud to stand with him. Every member here has held this coin and offered a small prayer that your family may find some solace in this time of sorrow, but also in the hopes that you will remember all the good times that were shared with this fellow here. Please accept this coin with us as your thanks. Thank you very much.
And on behalf of the Department of Veterans Affairs and the Grateful Nation, this is a privilege and honor for us to be here. With you, that has not been our resting place, letter from our doctor report released to Shijin. So our number of years on the tour at that time of the event.
Thank you, Sarah.
This now concludes the military honors portion of the service. We will now dismiss.
It was very nice.
Very nice.
So, okay. All right. They're pretty stringent with respect to the time, so get right to it. First of all, thank you very much for coming today. It's very important to me. I know it would be very important to Lieutenant Breakfield as well. Lieutenant Breakfield from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a graduate of Purdue University. His major was applied mathematics, and his minor was aeronautical engineering. Book smart lieutenant. At the basic school, we were assigned platoons by last name. So most of my friends at the basic school were all A's, B's, and C's. And Brazier and Boudria and Breakfield shared one room. So that's how I got to know Lieutenant Breakfield, who at that time we called Dick. But in more recent years, he's wanted to be called Rick, from the character Rick in the movie Casablanca. So I'll have to go back and look at that movie again and see. I assume Rick was a rough, tough guy, and that's why he assumed that name. At the basic school in 1967, June, that's where the 6 comes from, June of 67. It was an exceptionally large class, almost 500 Marine lieutenants, all hard chargers. they needed so many Marines because they were losing a lot of lieutenants, a lot of rifle commanders in Vietnam. Because the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese had learned first to find the Marine with the PRC 25 radio, which we didn't call PRC. We used another acronym, but look for the Marine with the radio, and then shoot the Marine next to the Marine with the radio. And that would be the Rifle commander. So they're losing a lot of Marine lieutenants in Vietnam, hence our very large class of lieutenants. I have to say that Barry Jones, sitting in the back there, was the honor man, the company honor man, and out of almost 500 Marines, graduated as probably number 2. So, he's a pretty modest individual, but also honored for his bravery in Vietnam by being awarded the nation's 3rd highest medal for valor, the Silver Star. And have to add also that Lieutenant Kritzbach was awarded the Bronze Star, and Sergeant Reynolds, the Navy Commendation Medal with the Combat V. Back to Breakfield. Lieutenant Breakfield wanted to be the best lieutenant at the basic school, and he spent considerable time working on his skills. Now, the basic school at that time was shortened to 21 weeks, and they were 5.5-day weeks, days and nights sometimes too, and a lot of studying in between. And when the rest of us were secured on Saturday at 1,200 hours, and we raced to get out of our whatever uniform that day was, and into our cities and go to Washington, D.C. To chase girls, ladies. Lieutenant Breakfield stayed at Quantico, and he practiced his land navigation skills, and he practiced his night navigation skills, and his running of the obstacle course, so he could get the very best time. I don't think he ever got the very best time, but he was certainly, got among the best times. It was pretty difficult competing athletically when in that almost 500 lieutenant cadre, there were football stars from various universities, basketball stars, track and field, lacrosse, gymnastics, wrestling, you name it. These guys were tough and fast and strong. So Lieutenant Breakfield stayed at the base. And the base itself is almost 60,000 acres, so there was plenty of room for him to roam. Upon his graduation, he decided he wanted to be on Marine reconnaissance. So he was heading out to California to join this reconnaissance unit. And the idea of Marine reconnaissance was that lieutenants and senior enlisted would lead small groups of Marines, 5, 6, 7 Marines, into the bush. I would say enemy territory, but basically in Vietnam, the enemy was everywhere, whether it was Viet Cong or whether it was North Vietnamese. But the idea was these folks would go by helicopter and be set down and then observe the enemy, North Vietnamese, coming into South Vietnam, and would call them artillery and airstrikes, and they would gunfire on their asses. So Lieutenant Breakfield was en route to Camp Pendleton so he could join the recon outfit. And en route, in his little VW bug, going about 75 or 80 miles an hour, however fast that little bug could go, his right front tire blew. And the truck driver that basically pulled him out of that VW said that that VW had rolled over 6 times. And at the time, Lieutenant Breakfield felt he was very, very lucky because he hadn't been injured, no broken bones. a few bruises, but nothing else. And later, when he got older and dementia started to set in, then we realized that he had, that his brain housing group had probably taken one heck of a jolt, or 6 jolts as the case may be. But he made it to Camp Pendleton. He was assigned overseas. On his 18th mission, he was leading a small group of recon Marines way up by the demilitarized zone. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, he figures, when he had his 7 Marines in what they call the harbor site, about 15 feet away from each other. No moon that night, pitch black, and he decided that he would scoot over on his butt to talk to his sergeant, whisper to his sergeant to give him some instructions. So I could just imagine what that sound would be as he his butt against the ground. And this sergeant had been warned by the major at the recon battalion that if he ever felt in danger, not to hesitate, but to open up and fire, which he did on his own lieutenant. So Lieutenant Breakfield incurred a wound that would later take 200 stitches, both externally and internally, to close. They couldn't medevac him from that location, probably because of canopy overhead, or it just wasn't suitable for a helicopter to come down or drop a litter down to put him on in a hole in the canopy. So they put him on, gave him some morphine, I guess, put him on a poncho, and carried him a long way through the jungle until they could medevac him. Went back to the United States, was medevaced, of course, to the United States, to Great Lakes Naval Hospital, where he spent several months there, recuperating. They had him in a partial cast, so it was his thigh that was wounded, but he had a partial body cast that came up over his right side, so it made walking very difficult. And he couldn't get upstairs, but after several months in the hospital, he wanted to go see his girlfriend. So I don't know whether he escaped from the hospital or whether they gave him, 3 days leave to go see his girlfriend. And he couldn't climb the steps into the aircraft, so they got a forklift and a pallet, and they put him on the pallet, and as Annette, the former Pan-American stewardess, would know, they put him in the back of the aircraft in that rear door, right where they load the food and beverages. So they got him in there, and then the jump seat, he kind of sat in the jump seat, as I understand it, but at least they leaned him against the jump seat, kind of strapped him in, and he went and saw his girlfriend. So he was medically discharged from the Marine Corps end of December 1969, and he stayed in the Southern California area, Costa Mesa, and he received 100% disability for his wounds. I looked that up, and I couldn't believe the number because when I Googled it, it said it was $295 a month. And I was trying to think what our apartment cost, and the cost of food back then, and all of that, but $295 certainly didn't go for disability back then. So I don't know if that number is correct, but there he was. He sold sailboats. The fellow that took a liking for him in Newport Beach, he sold sailboats, and he loved to sail. And although a little tough getting around the deck with his bum leg, but he loved to sail, and he crewed on one trip that went from Long Beach to Hawaii, down to Australia, and back again. So he also liked to scuba dive, and maybe it was because he felt more comfortable in the water than he did on land. But he went over to Malaysia, basically South China Sea, and scuba dived. Made friends in Australia. He had a great brain, back then his brain was working very well, and he went to the Sorbonne University in Paris, and he learned to speak fluent French. In fact, later when he was in hospice, you know, I tried to find somebody who spoke French to see if that part of his brain was still working, and he could communicate, but I didn't find anybody. So he also got his pilot's license and got involved in these fake dogfights. I guess there's a small, fast civilian aircraft, and for sport, they go up and pretend that they're dogfighting each other. I'm not sure exactly how they do it, but he got his pilot's license and did that. And then comes this young lady into his life, Aslan Dawson, now McGinnis. She was his personal trainer because he kept himself very fit. You know, he's about 6'2", about 180 pounds there, but kept himself very fit, ate very healthy, and he was going to Aslan for personal training frequently. And following that personal training, he also found a equally beautiful massage therapist. So he'd do his physical training, and then went and got massage, and everything was going great until Aslan saw that his brain was not working very well. Dementia was starting to set in, and she was in the midst of planning for a wedding. And she took time out, many visits to the VA in Long Beach, to put him in her car and bring him up and get him tested. And basically, they just said that this lieutenant needs help, he needs assisted living. The VA and Aslan got him into an assisted living place down in Tustin, and somewhere along the line they found my name and email address, and Aslan wrote me, and it was about 7 or 8 years ago, and that's when I got involved. So Annette and I are going to see Aslan here in the coming weeks, since she's in Concord, New Hampshire. I've never met her, I've emailed back and forth with her many times, but I've never met her, so we're going to go meet her and her 2 daughters and her husband. And it should be a lot of fun to thank her in person for the help that she gave Lieutenant Breakfield. So therein lies the story of my friend Lieutenant Breakfield. And this wreath was sent by Lieutenant Ray Dito on behalf of our basic school class, 667. You see the photograph here. It's the only one I could find, and that was when Lieutenant Breakfield was part of our honor guard at our wedding, January 3rd, 1970. And on that day, they didn't realize that that was his birthday. So that was, I had other things on my mind, but that was Lieutenant Breakfield's birthday, January 3rd, the date of my wedding, our wedding back then. And here, you'll see that Annette's put together some photographs. We've got Lynn Tron, the Vietnamese-American young lady who was his massage therapist, and she'd come every Saturday morning and massage his hands and his arms and his neck, and try to bring him some comfort. Marine Corps birthday, I called the recruiting office and got a couple of Marines to come down and to greet him, wish him happy Marine Corps birthday, and stand at attention for a long time while they played all 3 verses of the Marine Corps hymn. And got him a bubble machine to drive me crazy, and to dog there to get him comfort. So there lies the story of my friend Lieutenant Breakfield, and I'm really happy with the way this burn came out. I think they did a fine job. This book was written by one of our lieutenants, and basically it's the biography of every Marine officer that was killed from our basic school class in Vietnam, training for Vietnam, but mostly in combat in Vietnam, with the exception of Major Higgins, one of our classmates who was hanged by terrorists in Beirut at a later date. He was one of the 50, so we incurred 85% killed or wounded from our class, and 50 of those were KIA. And I'd like to just conclude with this. This is a poem in Jack Will's book. It says, imagine yourself in a place where you are at the peak of your life, a place where every moment means something. Imagine yourself all alone there. Then imagine the best people you will ever meet in your life join you. Now imagine that you know that each second could be your last, that each thought could be your last too, that any one of your friends could be dead at any moment. If you can imagine all this, you can feel for an instant what it was like for us who served in Vietnam. I like that. So, Lieutenant Breakfield, this is it, my friend. You did your duty, sir, and you will be missed. Semper Fidelis. All right. Get around her.
I don't know whether it's class.
There we go, sir. Huh?
You did
Right
great
on time.
on time,
Yeah, I was looking at you.
Yeah, you did great.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So before we conclude, I just have a little bit of information for you
Sure,
guys.
sure.
First, I would like to say thank you all so much for allowing us the privilege of honoring him with you today. We will be taking him to his final resting place. Directly after this, there will be a temporary marker laid, and then within 60 days, we will have that permanent marker that you filled the form out for.
Right.
They typically come in about a month, but just in case they come cracked, broken, or misspelled, we want to have that time frame to get it back in for you guys. So if you want to give me a call in a few weeks, that most likely will do this for you.
Good, sir.
And then, if at any time you're up here and you're not exactly sure where he's located, we do have 2 kiosks at the front of the cemetery. One is in the parking lot right here. That one is not my favorite. It does not always work well. So I do suggest if it's during our normal hours that you come into the lobby, type his last name and first name. It will print you a map, and then we can highlight you a route directly to him so you're not getting lost in our 300+ acres. Okay?
Okay.
So thank you all again so much.
Thank you for your help, sir. I appreciate it.
And are you wanting me to take this to the final resting place as well, or are you taking it with you?
No, I'd like to
Have it go?
have that there,
Yeah.
if you could do that.
Perfect. I will leave this and take the urn to the office, and I'll come back and grab it.
Okay, all right, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Present. Oh.